Millionaire follows her nanny after work and discovers an amazing, life-changing secret. Claire Thompson locked her office door behind her, exhaustion wrapping around her as tightly as her expensive silk blouse. The corporate world had been a relentless stream of high-stakes negotiations and cutthroat disagreements. As she descended the staircase of her firm, a wave of guilt washed over her yet again. She was going home as her kids drifted into sleep without her. Tonight, however, a flicker of determination sparked within her. She would follow Sophia, her devoted nanny, as she stepped into a world far away from the polished tables and conference rooms that defined Claire's life. Trailing behind Sophia was unfamiliar territory. It felt invasive, like an intrusion into a realm she didn't belong to. The shadows of Maplewood loomed larger than usual, every perfectly manicured lawn now bearing witness to her relentless ambition. Who could imagine a life unencumbered by the pitfalls of privilege? Claire's breaths hitched as they turned down a side street, feeling the weight of her fortune like shackles rather than wings. As she watched Sophia jog ahead, balancing her phone and a bag of takeout from a nearby diner, Claire couldn't shake the nagging guilt that turned her stomach. It wasn't just the exhaustion that pressed down on her, it was the growing realization that, while she climbed the corporate ladder, someone else was sacrificing their dreams for her family. She was a millionaire with an alarming hollowness inside, while Sophia, perpetually smiling, carried burdens deeper than she could ever imagine. Peeking through the diner's fogged window, Claire felt her insides twist. Lines on Sophia's face were etched by years of struggle. Abandoning her sanctuary for a second job just to scrape by while nurturing Claire's children, a visceral pang shot through Claire's heart. It was then she overheard the swirling conversation, laden with familial stories that hinted at a life far richer than mere dollars. An ancestral property, Sophia mentioned, lost in the shadows of time. But Clara felt encased by her privilege, a granite wall that separated her from understanding. Before Claire could dismiss the rebellious notion of reaching out, the weight of her corporate responsibilities called her back to the realm of contracts and clients. But this time, the distance felt insurmountable. How could she extend grace when her universe felt so defined by power? Confusion settled like lead in her stomach. She'd always pieced together narratives to justify her privilege, but hearing Sophia's struggles fractured that facade. When she uncovered an injustice stemming from her own firm, aimed squarely at exploiting families like Sophia's, fury and empathy engorged her soul. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Confronted by the reality that she could either stand up against this injustice or retreat to the comfort of her own life, Claire's chest tightened. Every instinct urged her to act, yet hesitation loomed like a dark cloud. Would she suffocate Sophia's independence with her intervention? Did showing support mean imposing her influence, thus building an even taller wall between their worlds? Hold the phone. Before she could juggle these thoughts into clarity, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, each vibration echoing her internal chaos. It was a message with an unfamiliar number. As she opened it, a rope of anxiety coiled around her throat. How could this single text reshape everything? With the remnants of her thoughts hanging in the balance, Claire felt the weight of the world. Would she rise to fight injustice or cower within her gilded cage? Claire inhaled sharply, her eyes glued to the screen. The message flickered ominously, laden with implications. You need to know what's happening at work. Meet me. Just like that, the universe she meticulously crafted threatened to spiral. She barely registered the cool air kissing her skin as she stepped out of the diner's shadows, her mind racing. Was this a call to action or another trap laid by the world of corporate deceit that had fueled her existence? Her heart pulsated with a blend of fear and anticipation. She had dedicated her entire career to climbing higher, yet here she was, grappling with the thought of others paying the price for her success. Her instincts told her to erase the message and walk away, to retreat back to the predictability of deadlines and board meetings. But a new resolve solidified within her, a push against her own complacency. The thought of Sophia's burdens weighed in stark contrast to the luxury of her own life. Perhaps this was the moment to step beyond her boundaries. Instead of continuing the routine of exploiting tales from nannies and cooks, she could explore the stories that defined their lives. Determined, Claire grabbed her phone and replied, "Where?" A strike of rebellion surged through her. She felt the gentle, yet powerful beckoning of change, a commitment she hadn't anticipated. After a few rapid-fire texts, she confirmed a meeting just outside her office, an old coffee shop nestled in the corner of Maplewood. It had been years since she had roamed these streets outside the confines of her corporate fortress. The drive, however short, embodied the adventure of stepping outside familiar territory. Arriving, the aroma of brewing coffee enveloped her, grounding her swirling thoughts. It wasn't long before she spotted him, Ryan, a colleague from her law firm, leaning against the entrance casually. He was a different breed of professional, always striking a balance between ambition and morality, a refreshing antidote to the cutthroat environment she often navigated. "Thanks for coming," Ryan greeted her, his expression a blend of gravity and urgency. "What is going on?" Claire's voice held a tremor of confusion, heart hammering against her ribs. Ryan pulled her aside, lowering his voice. "I learned something about the firm's dealings with Sophia's community. It's not just unfair, it's illegal. Families are being pushed out, and we're profiting from it." Brian's words resonated like an alarm bell. Memories of Sophia's stories collided with new revelations, forming a cacophony of outrage and responsibility within her. "But what can we do?" "It's complicated," Ryan admitted, running a hand through his tousled hair. "We can gather evidence, build a case. But we need to be careful, many will want to silence us." Claire felt the weight of the world pressing against her again, this time igniting a fierce determination. "I can help," she declared with surprising clarity, her voice emboldened by a sense of purpose she thought long lost. Thus began the mental unraveling of an old identity fashioned on privilege and negligence. Walking away from that meeting, Claire's mind buzzed with plans, the gears of her professional development pivoting toward activism. As she climbed back into her car, her reflection in the mirror revealed a woman evolving, her professional prowess no longer twisted into self-interest, but directed toward justice. Action spread through her, eagerly uplifting her spirit. Exiting the parking lot, she received another message. "Are you ready for what comes next? This one be easy." Her heart thumped louder as she considered this unfolding narrative and the weight of responsibility she'd assumed. Each decision would carve new paths, redefine her relationships, and force confrontations long past due. Claire could only wonder, in fighting for another's freedom, what shackles would she unearth within herself? Would there be a way back? Or were these new steps leading her into a world she could scarcely navigate? With uncertainty looming larger than before, she reached for her phone again, hesitant but ready to respond to the next challenge. The moment of truth was approaching. The throbbing pulse of her heart matched the sudden intensity in her mind. Claire's drive home felt shorter yet heavier, every stoplight stretching like a moment of indecision in her mind. The implications of Ryan's revelations gnawed at her consciousness, pushing her to confront the dissonance between her life and the lives she had dismissed for so long. That in the flurry of her thoughts, a question persisted: who was she really fighting for? The women she had treated as mere stories in her columns, or the concrete realities behind their experiences? She had climbed the ladders of success, buoyed by the stories of others, a climb that now felt tainted. Did her ambition blind her to the very injustices she was now eager to combat? Claire entered her home and tossed her keys into the bowl by the door, its dull clink echoing like her discontent. The warmth of her house was familiar, yet it felt alien under the weight of her new convictions. She paced the living room, pulling at invisible strings of morality. Could she align her personal growth with this new calling for justice? As she picked up her laptop, Claire's fingers hesitated above the keys. She knew she needed a plan, a clear path to navigate this newfound complexity. Diving into research, she began drafting a strategy not solely as a lawyer but as someone who had finally decided to engage with life at its raw edges. The laptop screen illuminated her face, the glare sharpening her resolve. She began by compiling information about the community. Ryan had mentioned how families were being displaced, the legal loopholes exploited by their firm, the dark underbelly of her polished world. Each unsettling fact that filled her document stirred in her a growing sense of urgency. Suddenly, an email notification pinged loudly, shattering her concentration. It was from Ryan, the subject line a stark reminder of their earlier conversation. Next steps. Her chest tightened as she clicked it open. We need to meet again. I have more details and some people who can help us. But we must act fast. Time isn't on our side, Ryan's email warned, urgency resonating through every typed word. Can I be the catalyst for change? Claire thought, grappling with the weight of that possibility. The hope of making a difference ignited a flame within her, the realization that her skills could produce tangible results fueled her determination. Yet, shadows of fear loomed. What if she was powerless against the corporate machine that ruled her life? Taking a steadying breath, she typed back immediately. When and where? Ready to put the gears in motion, she could feel the shift in her purpose and evolution from mere ambition to genuine activism. As night settled around her, the glow of her computer screen became a beacon in her quest. Learning, planning, and strategizing filled her nights, the drive for justice intertwined with her professional narrative. Each hour spent illuminating the plight of others was also a reflection of her own battles against ignorance, privilege, and the reliance on comfort. She had to confront her own role in this cycle of exploitation, unraveling her past while forging a new path forward. The phone buzzed again with Ryan's prompt response. Tomorrow morning at Maplewood again. Bring everything you have. With determination weaving through her veins, Claire nodded to herself, the stage now set for her involvement in a challenge that would question her ethics, test her resilience, and perhaps redefine her entire career. This would not just be about uncovering the truth, it was about seeking a future where her skills could indeed serve a higher purpose. Yet, as she shut down her laptop for the night, Claire couldn't escape the haunting questions circling her mind. If she chose this path, would she lose everything she had worked for? Was she prepared for the inevitable pushback that would come from her own firm? With the uncertainty looming ahead, Claire realized she stood at the edge of a precipice ready to leap into an unknown abyss. The time had come to face her true self and the reality she had once tried to ignore. How far was she willing to go to make things right? And as dawn broke, the answer awaited her, just beyond the threshold of her transformed life. The sun climbed over the horizon, casting a warm light through Claire's kitchen window as she brewed her morning coffee. The aroma filled the air, yet it felt strangely hollow. Today marked a pivotal moment, yet her heart thudded with trepidation. Each sip was laced with a mix of excitement and fear, the caffeine heightening her anxiety rather than calming it. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was utterly unprepared. Before setting out, Claire took a moment to review her notes, which sprawled across the table in chaotic splendor. Facts, figures, and potential strategies coalesced into a chaotic tapestry of treachery, injustice, and hope. Grabbing her materials, she felt the weight of truth press against her chest, nearly overwhelming her. As she drove to Maplewood, she allowed her mind to wander through the vast complexities that awaited her in the meeting. How could she convert her legal expertise into a vehicle for change? The ethical dilemmas she faced felt insurmountable. What if her colleagues discovered her ulterior motives? Would they vilify her as a traitor or praise her courage? Parking her car under the leafy canopy of Maplewood Park, Claire stepped out, taking in the familiar surroundings now tinged with new purpose. The tranquil atmosphere felt dissonant against the storm brewing inside her. With a deep breath, she approached the designated bench, where Ryan awaited her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. His presence was magnetic, a mix of determination and urgency that she craved to emulate. "Claire, I'm glad you made it," Ryan said, his demeanor all business. I've spoken with a few contacts in the neighborhood. They've shared stories that will floor you. We can't just talk strategy without knowing what we're really up against. Her heart raced, driven both by anticipation and trepidation. Lead the way, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As they walked, Ryan detailed the plight of the families facing eviction. Each narrative made her stomach twist tighter. A woman who had lost her job, a father working multiple shifts just to keep food on the table, children's laughter abruptly silenced by looming uncertainty. Claire's empathy morphed into resolve. We need to gather their testimonies, document the emotional and economic impacts. That could emphasize the human cost beyond just numbers. The clarity of her voice, coupled with the urgency of her ideas, surprised her. Yes, exactly, Ryan exclaimed. And we'll create a platform that gives these individuals a voice, one that the media can't ignore. They've been silenced, Claire. We'll be their advocates. It all hinges on how well we present their stories. As they continued to outline their goals, Claire felt her motivation solidifying. The narratives were not just stories, they were incarnations of suffering and resilience that needed to explode into public consciousness. Yet doubts crept in like shadows. How perilous was this venture? The legal ramifications loomed large, and the reality of their powerful opposition felt daunting. What about your job? Ryan interrupted her thoughts. Your firm, they'll come after you if they find out. His gaze was unwavering, yet it was softened by concern. I know, Claire replied, biting her lip. But I can't ignore this anymore. It feels like the weight of my entire career is at stake for something larger than myself. Suddenly, a wave of defiance surged through her, challenging her earlier insecurities. Then commit to this with me. It's not just about stories, Claire. It's about making a real impact that can't be unfurled easily, Ryan urged, his sincerity evident. After a beat, Claire nodded, a silent agreement solidifying between them. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flame of purpose ignite within her, but beneath her resolve flickered a question that lent a cautionary edge to her ambition. Could she truly stand firm when faced with the repercussions of breaking from her firm's ideals? And what if her journey to activism led to a confrontation she couldn't foresee? As they finalized plans for the coming days, a sudden unease settled in her gut, a sensation of encroaching chaos, as if the world itself was warning her of the unseen battles ahead. Claire knew she would have to face whatever came next with the same courage she felt brewing now. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a spiral down into a complex network of betrayal and revelation that would put her newfound convictions to the ultimate test. How far was she willing to push against the current, and who might she become in the process? As Claire and Ryan walked away from the bench, a sense of urgency encapsulated their steps. The shroud of impending conflict deepened as they immersed themselves in conversations focused on logistics: who would interview the families, how they would structure the testimonies, and the channels they could use to ensure their voices were amplified. All the while, Claire felt a duality within herself. The part eager for action clashed with the fear of the repercussions that could follow. Let us meet the families tomorrow, Ryan suggested, checking his watch. I think we need to dive right into their stories. The sooner we gather everything, the sooner we can start pushing back. Claire hesitated, a knot in her stomach tightening as she envisioned their faces vulnerable yet resilient, seeking help and change, but also potentially inviting danger into her life. Are we really ready? She asked, needing the moment to settle. This is the most crucial step. The longer we wait, the more people get hurt. We owe it to them, Ryan urged, a fire igniting in his voice. They paused at a crosswalk, and Claire felt the pulse of her heart in tune with the vibrant life that thrummed around them. Standing at the edge of the sidewalk, the gravity of her commitment solidified. All right, let us do it. But we need to be strategic. We need to consider how each story is framed. The power of her legal background surged within her, transforming fear into clarity. She envisioned themselves preparing a manifesto, a legal framework for their mission wrapped in heart, thumping with hope, and reverberating with the seriousness of their undertaking. That evening, back in her kitchen, the constant hum of her laptop registered like a countdown, a mounting sense of urgency. Drawing from her past experiences, she shaped strategy after strategy. How could she make their case watertight while remaining authentic to the stories that demanded truth? The lines between her professional identity and personal resolve blurred, revealing a landscape that promised both peril and reward. Just as she finalized a draft, her phone buzzed an email notification from her partner at the firm. The subject line read concerns. With a deep breath, Claire opened it, heart racing, half expecting an ultimatum. Instead, it detailed new clients with ties to real estate developments, a potential conflict that could jeopardize her newly forged path, each word draped over her like stone, heavy and unforgiving. It presented a challenge. They wanted her to present a positive outlook on the homes being built which mirrored, to her horror, the evictions they were fighting against. As she read, the churning inside her quieted momentarily. Clarity emerged in the chaos. This was no longer simply about the evictions. It was now also about guarding her integrity. "Claire, you wouldn't betray your own," she whispered, as if trying to convince herself. Yet, hers was a moral conflict that threatened to fracture her very essence. Could she spotlight the very injustices her firm championed, all while protecting herself and those her firm employed? The night deepened, shadows weaving across her kitchen as she weighed her choices. With each passing minute, uncertainty tightened its grip. She could either stand firm in her commitment or risk it all based on a fragile hope for justice. As dawn broke, illuminating new possibilities, an email chimed once more, a response from Ryan, confirming their first meeting with the families. Each keystroke sharpened her resolve, and she crafted her reply with renewed clarity. Let us be bold. Let us not only document their stories, but let us challenge everything that stands against them. As she pressed send, a threat loomed large in the background. Could she tackle her firm's expectations while nurturing a cause that ignited her spirit? The discovery of her own fortitude felt like a nascent flame, but the risk was palpable. Just as the weight of her decision settled over her, a message appeared from her firm, a request for an urgent meeting. Claire's pulse quickened. The moment of confrontation had arrived. Would she be strong enough to face the consequences? The formal conference room sat much too quiet, its sterile walls reflecting an ambience that was suffocating rather than empowering. Claire entered, squaring her shoulders, exhaling deeply as she adjusted her blazer. The faint scent of fresh coffee wafted toward her, an ironic comfort considering the storm brewing within. She faced her partner, Tom, seated at the head of the table, flanked by two senior associates. Their expressions seemed a collage of concern and scrutiny. "Thanks for coming in early, Claire," Tom began, his tone deceptively light. "We wanted to discuss your recent commitments." The sudden shift in atmosphere magnified her internal apprehension. This was at the fork in the road that had been looming ever since that fateful email. She could either capitulate to the expectations laid upon her or firmly assert her trajectory toward a purpose she had only recently unearthed. "Absolutely," Claire said, her voice steady, although her heart raced. "I understand there are concerns about my focus." Tom folded his hands, his fingers steepled under his chin. "It seems like you've been very proactive about this project with the families at a time when we have pressing commitments on our end. It's important to maintain our image and client relationships. These new real estate clients have deep pockets." As he spoke, Claire felt the walls close in around her, but she steadied herself. "I want to ensure that we support initiatives that align with our values." Her voice echoed with conviction, attracting the gazes of her colleagues. "The evictions happening in our community must not go unchallenged. I truly believe we can advocate for justice without compromising our integrity." A heavy silence followed. Tom's brows knitted together, a subtle indication that she had crossed an unspoken boundary. "Claire, we all want to be on the right side of things, but this is a business. We have to navigate it carefully. Sometimes that means aligning with powerful interests." Unease bled into her certainty as she noted his tone oscillating between concern and dismissal. But she pressed on, refusing to let doubt upend her resolve. I appreciate the complexities of keeping our clients happy, but what about the people being hurt? Don't we have a responsibility to advocate correctly? Her colleagues shifted uncomfortably, the tension thick enough to cut. Tom finally leaned back in his chair. I admire your passion, but let us be realistic. It's good to want to fight for change, but think about your career long term. You're in a sensitive position. The words of warning slithered into her mind like venom. They sank into her convictions, eliciting an instinctual defensiveness. She had just begun to uncover her strengths, her commitment to use those for something greater. I am thinking about my career, Tom. It's why I need to stay true to what I believe in. Otherwise, what's the point in working here? Once again, silence filled the room, her challenge hanging delicately in the air. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a reckoning, a confrontation with her own values. In that moment, she felt the stirrings of an internal reservoir of strength she hadn't fully recognized before. Let us put it to a vote, Tom suggested, a tinge of exasperation creeping into his voice. We can't afford to alienate our clients while you're doing this. In that instant, Claire's heart settled on a decision. It was now or never. If it means compromising my integrity, then I'd rather walk away. I understand the risks. As she spoke these words, a new thread of resolve coursed through her, invigorating in its certainty. The reaction from her partners remained unreadable, but Claire could feel the resolve within herself hardening like steel. What would she choose, safety in mediocrity or the tumultuous pursuit of justice? As the meeting adjourned, she sensed that her decision had just begun to shape her true path. Walking down the hallway, her stomach twisted with anticipation. Tomorrow's meeting with the families awaited, along with the potential fallout from her decision. And yet, she couldn't help but wonder if the tremors within her own life were merely a precursor to a much larger upheaval, one that might just explode in ways she hadn't anticipated. Doubt lingered, but so did an exhilarating rush. She paused outside an office door that she often walked by, now seeing it as the threshold between two worlds, the one she had to leave behind and the one she was determined to enter. Was she ready for the repercussions? The challenge lay ahead, and the time was imminent to stand firm in her truth. Could she harness the power of her convictions, or would the ties that bound her back to the firm strangle her aspirations? The brisk morning air greeted Claire as she stepped outside, invigorating her growing determination. The sky was a vivid blue, untouched by the discord of the previous day's meeting, and with each stride, she felt the weight of uncertainty lift slightly. Today, she would meet the families she had fought for, and the anticipation filled her with both dread and hope. She had prepared meticulously for this meeting, gathering documents and testimonies, readying herself to present not just facts, but her unwavering commitment to their cause. Yet, as she sat in her car, waiting outside the community center, anxiety knotted in her stomach. The stakes felt monumental, and with every passing moment, the specter of her decision loomed larger. This was a significant moment, not only for the families but for Claire herself. Today would test her mettle. Walking through the doors of the center, Claire was enveloped in an atmosphere of resilience and haunting sadness. The families, weary from battles against eviction, raised their heads at her entrance, their faces etched with varying degrees of hope and skepticism. Claire drew in a breath and reminded herself of why she was there. They were more than just cases for her, they were real human beings, grappling with a reality that no one should have to face. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice strong, resonating above the quiet murmurs. I know you're facing immense challenges, and I want to assure you that I will fight for your rights. Your stories need to be heard, and we can make a difference together. As she spoke, she scanned their faces, seeking to connect with the pain she could see reflected there. One woman, her expression fierce yet vulnerable, caught Claire's eye. How can we trust you? She asked, an edge of defensiveness in her tone. We've been let down before. Claire paused, struck by the earnestness of the question. It was a pivotal moment, not one she could brush aside. I understand your distrust, she replied thoughtfully. But trusting me could change the course of our fight. I want to create a legal shield around you. Together, we can build a case that's impossible to ignore. The atmosphere shifted, hope flickered in the eyes of her audience. Claire's heart raced as she continued to outline her plan. With each detail she shared, she felt her confidence deepen, fueled by their engagement and the gravity of their struggles. They didn't just need a lawyer, they needed an advocate, someone willing to stand at the front lines. After the meeting, a cluster of families gathered around her, their expressions less guarded. They asked questions, offered insights into their experiences, and for the first time, Claire could feel the team she was building, the coalition of voices ready to challenge the status quo. Yet, as she drove back to the office, a wave of doubt crashed over her. What if Tom's warning was right? Had she just painted a target on her back? The thought of backlash crept in, whispering tales of consequence and retribution. But deep inside, Claire could feel something else stirring, fierce conviction. If fighting for justice meant losing what some called security, so be it. She had tasted empowerment, and each moment spent on behalf of those families only solidified her ambition. This wasn't just about her career anymore, it was a newfound purpose. The firm was no longer a sanctuary for her ambitions but a cage. Claire's resolve crystallized as she faced the towering buildings of her firm on her return. The lives she fought for now outweighed the looming threats of her discontented colleagues. She had to embrace this tension, harness it, because the true battle was just beginning. Visions of community meetings, rallies, and discussions with advocates filled her mind. What if, instead of one ambitious lawyer alone, this became a movement? At that moment, she knew she couldn't simply sit back and wait for change. She had to become the catalyst. Just then, a news notification pinged on her phone, its headline spinning into view: local activist group launches investigation into widespread evictions. A cold thrill of urgency shot through her. What had she stepped into? The time had come to not only face the firm but delve deep into this network she had unwittingly entangled herself with. This wasn't just about advocacy anymore, it was about survival. What revelations awaited as she navigated this new and treacherous territory? The question hung like a blade over her future, compelling her forward into the unknown. Claire parked her car in the crowded lot, her mind a flurry of thoughts racing faster than her heartbeat. As she stepped inside the firm's lobby, the ambient noise of ringing phones and hushed conversations felt distant, overshadowed by her rising determination. She was no longer just a lawyer, she was on the precipice of something larger than herself, navigating the precarious line of ambition and moral responsibility. On her desk, stack upon stack of case files waited patiently. They represented the traditional path, the safe route, the one laden with predictable success. But as her gaze fell on them, something unexpected twisted in her stomach. They felt like a tether, dragging her away from her purpose. The lives of those families she had just spoken with buzzed in her memory, mingling with the mundane office chatter. They were fighting for their homes, their dignity, and she was poised to leverage her skills into a force for change. Her heart raced as the gravity of her new direction settled in. It was time to step up. Claire grabbed a file that contained notes about potential legal strategies for her new clients, scribbled down during the meeting. She opened her laptop and began typing furiously, a manifesto of sorts, outlining not just legal theories but her vision for this emerging movement. With each word, she envisioned the faces of the families who had shared their stories with her, fueling her drive. She wanted to instill in them the belief that they were not alone, that a score of advocates stood ready behind the shield she intended to create. She began drafting a proposal for community workshop sessions aimed not just at explaining legal rights but mobilizing the collective knowledge and experience of their shared frustrations. But even the thought of those workshops raised a specter of unease within her. What if her colleagues dismissed her efforts as a fool's errand? What if they branded her a rogue, an outcast? The dread felt stifling, yet she pressed on, unwilling to capitulate to fear. She wouldn't be silenced by the potential fallout of her choices. The risk of isolation could not outweigh the potential salvation of those families. That evening, Claire called a meeting with her closest co-workers, intent on sharing her transformative vision. Her pulse quickened in anticipation. She felt the weight of their skepticism shadowing her nearly every move, yet she couldn't shy away now. She was the one at the helm of change, a captain steering a ship toward uncharted waters. The conference room was stark and narrow, the fluorescent lights casting an unflattering hue over the polite faces grouped around the table. Their expressions, a cocktail of intrigue and wariness, matched the palpable tension filling the air. As she spoke about her plans, she could sense the gears turning within them, shifting from disbelief to cautious curiosity. Claire's confidence began to blossom, rising with each articulate point substantiating her thoughts, but just as she felt the tide beginning to turn, Tom entered the room, the ever-watchful sentinel of traditionalism. His presence loomed large, and she saw in his smirk a challenge, a reminder of the risks she was igniting. "I can't believe you're seriously considering this," Tom interjected, his tone draping a palpable chill over the room. "This isn't just a legal battle, it's personal. You'll ruin your career." Something snapped within her at the undertone of derision in his voice. "What I'm doing here is not about me, Tom. It's about giving these families the voice they've been denied. This is bigger than the firm." She met his gaze, steel in her own, determination radiant in her eyes. Rather than quaking under his scrutiny, something unshakable within her ignited. She was prepared to draw the line to take this conversation beyond the sterile confines of the office. The balancing act between ambition and integrity felt clearer than ever. "I'm not backing down," she declared, aware of the consequences that might soon follow. The stakes had never been higher. Was it possible Tom's warning was rooted not just in concern, but in the threat she represented? The moment hung, suspended in tension, each person in the room waiting for the tectonic shift of consequence. When Claire finally turned away from Tom, she felt the world refocus. She was on the brink of a confrontation that extended beyond one lawyer's career. It was a reckoning, marking the fine line between the comfort of conformity and the chaos of true advocacy, and as the meeting concluded, a fresh notification flashed on Claire's phone: another article, another unfurling narrative that would force her to confront the alliances she had begun to form. Now it was not just about her fight, it was about the connections leading her deeper into this web of influence she started to unravel. What discoveries awaited her as she sought to not only advocate but disrupt? The tension crackled in the air, guiding her instincts into a deeper, darker intrigue that beckoned from the shadows. Claire stared at her phone, the headline vibrating with potential implications. Words like "millionaire" and "life-changing secret" stabbed through her focus, luring her into a world far removed from her legal documents and courtroom strategies. The article piqued her curiosity but also ignited a surge of frustration. How could she possibly shift her gaze from the pressing issues at hand to some sensational tale of wealth? Yet, she felt the undercurrent of her own unresolved doubts swirling beneath her resolve. She pushed her frustrations aside and allowed herself to indulge in the article, setting her laptop aside. It wouldn't change the world she was fighting to protect, but for a few fleeting moments, it offered a distraction. As she read, a part of her heart raced at the thought of the million-dollar life contrasting so sharply with the humble existence of her clients. The disparity unsettled her, a reminder that for every comfort enjoyed by the affluent, a struggle brewed in the shadows for those without advantage. Her thoughts spiraled back to Tom's words, echoing in her mind. "You'll ruin your career." That statement still clung painfully, a grim reminder of the road she had defiantly chosen. A harsh truth hit her: every moment dedicated to her advocacy might cost her the very reputation she was trying to uphold. Yet, leaving these families to fight alone felt far heavier. Determined not to succumb to trepidation, Claire drew a breath, processing her options. If she was going to make waves, she needed a calculated approach. Perhaps Tom was right about one thing: there was merit in a strategic plan. In her role as an advocate, she needed to speak not only through fervor but also through the language of influence. She shuffled papers on her cluttered desk, each one a reflection of the cases she needed to tackle. Then an idea crystallized, What if she gained insight into her clients' circumstances by actually stepping into their lives? Connecting with them on levels beyond the courtroom could galvanize her approach. This could prove pivotal in her advocacy, allowing for dialogue forged from direct experience rather than abstract sympathy. That night, she devised a plan for the upcoming week: structured visits with clients, sharing meals, and inviting them to her home, perhaps even organizing informal meetups to learn about their struggles in authentic ways. She typed each detail with fervor. Each letter she typed did not merely outline logistics, it represented another strand woven into her burgeoning advocacy tapestry. However, she couldn't deny the consequential shadows looming ahead. Was she equipped to navigate the emotional terrain of her clients' lives? Each session could reveal not only their hardships but also her own vulnerabilities. There was a tightrope ahead, and a misstep could lead to unwanted chaos in her already precarious balancing act. The next day, equipped with her newfound strategy, she approached her supervisor, intent on gaining support for her initiative. It was time to approach the firm with confidence, presenting herself as a pioneer rather than a distraction. She rehearsed her pitch repeatedly, each word stamped with conviction as she anticipated the scrutiny that mirrored Tom's earlier doubts. As she entered the glass-walled office, confident but anxious, she encountered an unexpected sight: Tom already seated across her supervisor's imposing desk. Claire's heart quickened. The air thickened with tension. Would he challenge her again? And if so, how could she use that to her advantage? In that moment, she realized her fight was not just for her clients' voices but for her narrative as well. She was on the brink of searching not just for change, but for her own identity within this transformative process. What awaited her in that encounter? Would she leverage Tom's critique to solidify her mission or falter under the pressure of familiar doubt? The stakes felt impossibly high as Claire stepped further into the room, ready to face whatever direction this confrontation might unfold. Claire Thompson sat in the conference room, surrounded by the same sterile atmosphere that once stifled her ambitions. But today, it was different. Today, she would assert her transformation, a blend of lawyer and activist ready to champion the rights of those she once overlooked. She had researched tirelessly, gathered testimonies from families affected by evictions, and formulated strategies that transcended mere legal jargon. "Thank you for coming in today, Claire," Tom began, his tone measured but clipped. The others around the table eyed her curiously, but she felt a fire in her belly. This was her moment. "You've been bringing up an unusual focus on advocacy rather than our core focus of profit. Can you explain the purpose of this shift?" Claire took a breath, feeling the weight of her past but lifting it with newfound determination. "I believe that as attorneys, we have a profound responsibility not just to our firm but to the community we serve. The families we're representing are struggling, not just numbers on a balance sheet. They are real people facing real injustices, and it's time we aligned our practice with our stated values of fairness and justice." The murmurs in the room fell silent as all eyes turned toward her, some faces filled with skepticism, others with encouragement. A flicker of uncertainty passed through her, but she shook it off. She recounted stories of families, humanizing the statistics that had become so commonplace in their corporate discussions. She described the mother fighting for her children's stability, the father working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and she made them listen. "What I propose is more than just legal representation, it's a movement. We can start community workshops where these families can share their stories, empower one another, and organize for their rights. By supporting this initiative, we can help them reclaim their dignity and their homes, together." A suffocating silence followed her pitch, each pair of eyes weighing her words. She could almost hear the gears turning in their heads, assessing not just the practicality of her ideas, but the implications for their own careers. Tom leaned forward, his expression inscrutable. "And what about company profits?" he asked slowly. "Don't we have obligations to our clients, those funding these real estate projects?" "Absolutely," Claire replied, "but that doesn't mean we need to ignore those marginalized in the process. Imagine if we presented our firm not as advocates for the powerful but champions for those overlooked." An uncharacteristic silence reigned, a full pause as her colleagues absorbed her vision. Claire could sense the reluctance cascading through the room, the fears of stepping outside familiar boundaries. Yet fear was no longer the guiding force of her life. The apprehension bore down on her, yet she pressed on, recounting her commitment to fight the injustices they had been complacent about for too long. Every empire is built on the shoulders of the oppressed, she stated softly, yet firmly. We can either reinforce those structures or dismantle them. I choose the latter. As she finished, the room erupted into murmurs, the sound of her colleagues grappling with her challenge. Claire could feel the tension improvise in a rhythm of uncertainty and hope. In the days that followed, the shifts in her firm's atmosphere began to resonate through every interaction. Conversations over lunch turned into discussions about social responsibility. Attorneys started putting their weight behind her initiatives, exploring sponsored community workshops, and diligent town hall meetings. More than one person approached her with words of encouragement, recognition of her courage spreading like wildfire. The seeds of change were being planted, nurtured by voices that had remained quiet for far too long. Despite the progress, resistance lingered. A month later, Tom called Claire into his office, his demeanor stern, puncturing the harmony she had felt building. We need to talk about the balance of power here, he warned. Your passion is admirable, but I fear it could lead to a fallout that jeopardizes the firm's standing. Claire, aware of the stakes, was ready. Tom, I acknowledge the risks. But the fallout of silence weighs heavier on our conscience. I'm prepared to advocate for those who have none. He regarded her for a long moment, the air tinged with tension before he finally relented. We aren't drafting a manifesto for social change, we run a law firm, Claire, he said, though a hint of respect pierced through his words. Just keep in mind, with every choice you make, you reshape your own path here. In that moment, Claire realized she was no longer the ambitious corporate lawyer caught between worlds. She had established herself as a bridge and a force of change. Her vision had taken root, blossoming beyond negotiation tables and into the heart of the community that needed her. The final challenge arrived with the chance to present their case to the local council. Standing in front of the committee, the memories of the families fueled her urgency. She brought their stories alive with passion and heart, challenging those seated before her to reflect on their inherent responsibility as leaders. We cannot shy away from our roles as custodians of justice. Each of us has the power, the control to shape our world, not with silence, but with advocacy. As her presentation came to an end, the committee expressed their gratitude. Caught between awe and hesitation, they recognized the righteousness of her cause. The excitement surged from within. Claire felt a palpable shift of empowerment not just for herself, but for the families she represented. She stood there, a sense of solid confidence unfurling. The applause resonated throughout the room. Claire had fully formed her identity: a competent lawyer, an activist, an advocate for change. Leaving the building, she knew she had achieved something monumental, a personal triumph evolving from moments of doubt and reflection. The journey had transformed both her life and the lives of those seeking justice, forging her path forward into a future where she would remain steadfast in her commitment. This was just the beginning. The movement she had breathed into life was ready to unfold. Thus, Claire Thompson found herself at the summit of achievement, uniting her skills with conviction. She proved that true empowerment comes from standing for the rights of others, paving her own road to fulfillment and purpose. This is the moment for you to join Claire on her journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the strength of personal change. You need to subscribe now because only true fans of overcoming stories understand the importance of standing united for justice and growth. Don't wait even one more second to share. Make a difference today.